The memory was vivid and terrifying. He was immobilized in a straitjacket, completely helpless and strapped to a gurney. Back in the present, the weight of that memory crushed him. The young man let out a long sigh, exhausted, his energy drained by the trauma that still haunted him. On the table, a book with a peculiar symbol caught his attention. That object seemed to be a centerpiece in his search for answers or recovery. After that difficult day, he decided to reconnect with the past. The young man met up with old friends, who greeted him with jokes and obvious relief at seeing him again. The group continued together, passing through turnstiles and making plans for later. For the protagonist, each step was an attempt to reintegrate into a routine he had lost. However, a shadow pursued him. A sinister and dark presence manifested behind him, a reminder that his torment was far from over. He felt the darkness. The feeling of being watched did not leave him. Even in a public place, surrounded by people, the young man turned instinctively, unable to ignore the presence that haunted him. The protagonist realized that his view of reality was distorted. The classroom transformed into a nightmarish setting, where dark and threatening figures replaced his classmates. Back in reality, the protagonist's behavior did not go unnoticed. A classmate expressed his confusion, noting that the young man seemed disturbed and completely absent from the class. The anguish became physical and unbearable. The protagonist felt an evil presence dominating him, a force that tormented him from within as he struggled not to succumb to the pain. Completely disoriented, the protagonist moved abruptly and collided with the classmate who was watching him. The other guy reacted with surprise, caught off guard by the sudden and uncoordinated action. The colleague tried after the battle, the young man collapsed, completely exhausted. The dark creature fell apart at his feet, but the victory brought no relief, only the crushing weight of what he had to do to survive. Still panting, the young man tried to recover from his exhaustion. The woman next to him noticed his anguish and questioned him with concern, wanting to know what had happened to leave him so shaken. The young man sat down on a bench, overwhelmed by exhaustion and the situation. He remained silent, unable to respond to her concern. His companion stood beside him, waiting patiently while he tried to compose himself. Suddenly, a digital interface activated in his vision, overlaying reality. The previous exhaustion disappeared, replaced by a sharp focus as the young man analyzed the data that appeared before his eyes. An unknown energy enveloped the protagonist, a physical manifestation of the newly activated system. He remained motionless in the dark room, feeling the power flow through his body for the first time, a completely new and overwhelming sensation. The protagonist received the system's fundamental explanation of how the power worked. He understood that everything started with choosing a core skill. The young man considered the weight of this first decision, which would define the protagonist reflected on the system's revelation. He finally connected the dots, understanding the real reason behind the unique advantage he had received. The young man realized that his situation was a fundamental exception to the rule he had just learned. As the protagonist processed his discovery, a familiar sound interrupted him. A new system notification appeared before him, demanding his immediate attention and breaking his train of thought. The notification revealed a map of his capabilities. The screen displayed the progression of his skills, from time manipulation to precise analysis. The illuminated path culminated in a power that seemed to influence everything around him. The protagonist analyzed the complex system of his newly acquired abilities. He charted a path to power, identifying the key points he needed to master to achieve his ultimate goal. The protagonist received confirmation from the system. A holographic notification informed him that his core ability had finally been awakened, marking the beginning of a new phase for the young man. However, he was not alone. A surveillance camera on the ceiling recorded his every move, a constant reminder that he was a prisoner in that laboratory. The young man stared at the surveillance device, aware that he was being watched. His posture was one of silent defiance, a veiled promise of what was to come. Elsewhere, violent preparations were being made. The image of a prisoner being restrained with brutality reinforced the oppressive nature of that environment. Terror was evident on the face of another test subject. The panic and madness in his eyes showed the fate that awaited those who could not break free from the researchers' control. The facility's response was immediate and lethal. A robotic sentry descended from the ceiling, with its weapons pointed directly at the protagonist, who remained motionless in the corridor. The machine, identified as Eternal, activated its optical sensor. The bright red light signaled its sole purpose: to eliminate any threat detected, and the young man was its primary target. Its metallic and impersonal structure showed no emotion. It was a killing machine, programmed to execute orders without question, a perfect executor for that inhumane system. Memories of terror surfaced, showing the despair of previous victims. Screams of agony echoed, recalling the suffering that the same machine had already caused. The floor was covered with the bodies of those who came before him. The massacre was proof of the robot's efficiency and the fate that awaited him if he didn't react in time. Without any hesitation, the sentry advanced at high speed. The sound of metal against the floor filled the corridor, signaling the start of the inevitable confrontation. Faced with the imminent threat, the protagonist remained firm. He clasped his hands together, concentrating his energy as a pool of liquid formed at his feet, preparing for the counterattack. His eyes glowed with a newly awakened power. The young man reflected on the cruelty of the researchers, and a smile of contempt appeared on his face. The hour of retribution had arrived. The robot delivered a crushing blow, moving its heavy arm with full force. The attack was designed to annihilate the target instantly, without giving any chance of defense. However, the protagonist reacted with superhuman speed. He dodged the deadly blow with a fluid and precise movement, demonstrating that the game had completely changed. XML. The protagonist remained standing amidst the wreckage, holding his helmet. The battle seemed to be over, but a sense of danger still lingered in the air. Suddenly, the young man raised his head, alerted by a sudden sound. Something unexpected broke the silence of the destroyed area. An authoritative voice boomed over the complex's loudspeakers, conveying an order with urgency and coldness. The message was clear and unquestionable. The order echoed, demanding that he leave immediately. The protagonist understood that there was no choice but to obey the command. However, before he could move, a violent explosion forced him to shield himself from the impact. The danger was imminent and deadly. Without hesitation, the young man ran desperately away from the danger. His only priority at that moment was to survive the ensuing chaos. The location's automatic defenses were activated, firing at any moving target. The escape became even more difficult and risky. On his way, he found a wounded soldier. The man, despite the pain, maintained a determined look, focused on his mission. The soldier guided him to a secret room. Before them, a wall full of weapons represented the only chance to fight and escape. The soldier handed him a communicator, instructing him on how to use it when he was outside. The responsibility now rested with the protagonist. Meanwhile, elsewhere, professional streamer Kang Soil was performing for her audience. She dramatically lamented her wounded pride. Kang Soil finalized her character's appearance in the game. With the customization saved, she enthusiastically prepared to choose a powerful skill. While reading her fans' comments, a suggestion caught her attention. The idea of completing the tutorial without any help or correction made her thoughtful. With a teasing smile, she decided to accept the challenge. The mission to beat the tutorial without corrections appeared on the screen, and Kang Soil egged on her audience. The prospect of such a great challenge and the reward it would bring made her euphoric. For her, it was an opportunity that could not be missed. Full of confidence, the young woman decided to face the tutorial without any help from the system. She ran towards the portal, declaring that she would prove her worth the hard way without combat corrections. As she approached the start terminal, a system notification caught her attention. The girl began interacting with the interface to configure her entry into the challenge. With an excited smile, she confirmed her settings, hoping to find a group to accompany her. The young woman seemed eager to start the match and test her skills alongside other players. However, an unexpected message frustrated her plans. The system reported that the search for a group had failed, leaving her completely alone for the challenge. Her confidence was shaken by the news. panic began to take over her. The reality of facing the tutorial alone, and with the difficulty increased by her own choice, was much scarier than she had imagined. Desperate, the young woman tried to cancel the start of the match. She refused to accept the situation, frantically interacting with the screen to reverse her hasty decision. However, it was too late. The system confirmed the start of the mission, ignoring her cancellation attempts and forcing her to move forward with the conditions she herself had chosen. Upon entering the tutorial area, she came across an unexpected scene. Several security robots were already destroyed on the ground, sparking. The young woman was confused, not understanding what had happened. The wreckage of the machines indicated that a recent and violent battle had taken place. Someone with immense power had already passed through there, clearing the way with brutal efficiency. The destruction was total and absolute. Each piece of twisted metal on the ground was a testament to the overwhelming strength of the mysterious combatant who preceded her in that corridor. The girl observed the carnage with a mixture of relief and apprehension. She realized that she was not alone, but her unknown teammate was clearly of a much higher level. She analyzed the damage to the robots and came to a crucial conclusion. The enemies were not defeated by firearms, but by impressive physical strength, something she did not expect to find. Fear gave way to sudden euphoria. Realizing that she was on the same team as such a powerful player, the young woman understood that she would not have to fight. She would be carried to victory. Her excitement was tempered by a doubt. She looked around, searching for her savior, but saw no one. The girl called out timidly, not knowing how to approach the mysterious figure. Suddenly, a bloody blade was pressed against her chest. The surprise attack came from where she least expected it, turning her hope of salvation into sudden and mortal terror. In an act of desperation, the purple-haired woman stabbed the man. However, her face twisted in shock, as if she herself did not believe what she had just done. The young man felt the impact of the blade and staggered back, blood staining his clothes. The pain of the wound was evident as he fell against the wall. Terror paralyzed the woman. The tip of the bloody dagger reflected in her wide eye, a visual reminder of the violent act she had committed moments before. The situation reversed. The man now held the weapon, while the young woman hid, expressing a desperate apology for her previous attack. Ignoring the plea, the protagonist turned his back on her. His posture was calm, despite the injury, and revealed another weapon attached to a chain on his waist. The scene around them revealed the true nature of the conflict. Before a corpse, the woman expressed her astonishment, while the young man remained silent, observing the result of the battle. They stood still amidst the carnage. Their feet were on a pool of blood, a silent testament to the violence that had just occurred in that place. The young woman hesitated, but tried to approach the man. She reached out her hand, perhaps seeking some kind of connection, but he remained with his back turned, impassive. Suddenly, the sound of gunfire echoed through the corridor. The woman threw herself to the ground to protect herself, panic taking over her in the face of the new and sudden threat. The protagonist, however, was not shaken. With impressive speed, he used his chained weapon to deflect the bullets, protecting himself and her from the attack. Ganexmilr, he manipulated the chain with mastery, turning it into an impenetrable shield. The weapon became an extension of his body, moving with lethal precision. With a swift spin, the young man launched the blade in a deadly arc. The movement was fluid and powerful, demonstrating total control over his weapon. The weapon cut through the air, a blur of steel and fury moving with a clear and devastating purpose. The attack hit its mark. In an instant, the armed soldiers were neutralized with brutal efficiency, their bodies falling inert to the ground. Behind him, the woman watched everything in silence. Her gaze was no longer one of panic, but of pure astonishment at the display of power she had just witnessed. The protagonist's eyes glowed with uncontrolled fury. A dark and intense energy emanated from his body, signaling that his revenge was only just beginning. An analysis of his attributes revealed overwhelming physical power, but a total absence of special abilities. The observers questioned, shocked, the true nature of that individual. The man's identity, however, remained a mystery. The analysis system failed to find any corresponding record. increasing the apprehension of those monitoring him. In a control room, a dark-haired young woman stared at the screen, dumbfounded. She couldn't believe the data she was seeing, completely perplexed by the subject's power. Memories of his torture resurfaced. The protagonist, bloodied and chained, defied the limits of the human body, moving in ways that were considered impossible. He used the chains that bound him as a weapon. With a brutal and precise movement, the young man attacked his opponent, turning his symbol of imprisonment into an instrument of death.